Yo, what is up guys, it's Pedro here, and in today's video I'll be talking about Luke McCaffrey and how he looks absolutely jacked, and I want to talk about expectations for him going into his second year. Will he have a breakout year 2? Will he live up to where he got drafted in the third round? If you guys are new, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button and that notification bell as well so you never miss a video. So this picture apparently is old news. I tweeted it out yesterday, and in a couple group chats I was talking about it, and people were like, "Oh, this was a few weeks ago," and then I was like, "Oh, makes sense because I was in the hospital." I guess around when this picture got released, 2-3 weeks ago, but I still haven't seen a lot of people talk about it, and it gives us a good talking point of Luke McCaffrey and year 2 for him. So this is him with Christian McCaffrey, makes sense, his brother, Bijan Robinson in the middle right there. And then I don't know the connection between CMC and Bijan besides both of them being good running backs. And then you got Luke McCaffrey, who he looked absolutely jacked, shredded, and ready. Not as jacked as his brother per se, but he looks as shredded or as lean as his brother, if not leaner. And looks bigger than he did last year, which is good. And let's see if it's translates to the field. And the first time we'll be able to see that is training camp. We'll see how he looks in training camp, a little bit in the preseason. We'll see where he is in the pecking order of wide receivers, because obviously you got Terry, who hopefully is going to be there for training camp and this season. You got Debo. You got Noah Brown, who looks like the injury wasn't bad news, so it wasn't a long-term type of thing that's going to knock him out for the season. So knock on wood, remains the same. And those are the three. I would say undoubtedly those guys are above Luke McCaffrey, unless going into training camp, unless Luke has taken a big leap. Then you got Luke, you got Jalen Lane, and you got some of the other guys, KJ Osborne, Ja'Cory Brooks, and Michael Strachan, I believe. You got Chris Moore. I'm probably missing some of the guys too, but you got those types of players after those first 5 that I mentioned that are also going to be competing for a spot. But Luke McCaffrey was drafted in the third round. He's still relatively new to the wide receiver position and still getting better. Did show some flashes in his rookie year, but in my opinion, did not show enough and had a good first few games. We'll talk about that. So overall, very underwhelming stats. 17 games, so it's not like he was missing games. 18 catches, 168 yards. Let's look at the game log, though. Let's look at the game logs. So 2024 in the playoffs, I don't even know if he got a catch. 2024. So the first, I would say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5-ish games of the season, it wasn't great by any means, but he was putting up some decent stats. 18 yards in the first game. Second game didn't have anything. Next game, best game of his career, 44 yards. Next game, 17 yards. Next game, 19 yards. And then next game, 5. I'm not trying to gas these stats up or anything. Obviously, these aren't insane stats. But, averaging 25-ish. Yeah, 20 through his 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. His first 5 games, averaging around 20-ish yards a game. Which, like I said, it's nothing to write home about. But for your first 5 games as a third-round pick, relatively new to the position, I think that's pretty good. But after that, 0 yards, 8 yards, 0, 23, and that was just 1 catch. So, it was just 1 catch. 0, 8, 13, 0, 13, 0, 0. So it was not good, guys. It was not good, especially end of the season. And then playoffs, got targeted 1 time. And ended up doing a little bit as a returner the second half of the season. But Luke had an underwhelming rookie year, for sure. And, let's see what he can do in year 2. And I'll show you guys a stat that I think is encouraging, but also, it doesn't matter at the end of the day if the production isn't happening. So here's another picture of Luke McCaffrey. Looks shredded there and probably got more shredded after this picture was taken. And then you got, let me mute this so we don't get any copyright, but you got Jaden rolling out to his, right there, and, making a nice throw. Not a perfect spiral or anything, but, not to nitpick as I'm nitpicking, but, Jaden obviously is the franchise. It's kind of like I don't even know if they had corners here, but I guess they did. And, throwing a, dime to Luke there. You see Jordan McGee behind Luke, and it seems like they got really good chemistry. I know early on in the offseason last year they were really tight, and I'm sure they're still tight. I don't know how tight they are, but I know early on, like, that was Jaden's guy. I don't think necessarily that's still the case, like, in terms of, like, that's his guy, because I know he has a bunch of those. Like, I know, Bobby Wagner and him are tight. I know Mike Sainristil and him are tight. And then obviously Sam Hartman. Like, I haven't seen that connection, like, super big time. But also, we don't see 99.9% of their interactions. So I don't really know. But, they're obviously friends and everything. But it's just of, like, are they really, really, like, because based off what they were saying and talking, like how they were talking right after they got drafted and, during the offseason, I thought that was going to be, like, Jaden's main target. Like, obviously besides Terry, like, he was going to be throwing to Luke McCaffrey a lot, and it wasn't really the case. And honestly, he was throwing to Luke probably less than he should have, because we'll look at this stat. And his average separation score, Luke McCaffrey's, among first and second year players, was number 1. His separation rate was number 3 among all receivers. And then EPA per target tied 5th. So this was through October 9th. So, obviously still early in the season, but that's like 5-6 games of data there. And, those were the first games of the season. And I think it might not have stayed up to these crazy numbers here, but I know it was still pretty high, and he finished the season with a pretty high separation score. So Jaden wasn't really getting it to him. And, early on, this was not the case in the end of the season. But I do remember there were times where it's like they show the replay and Luke McCaffrey's wide open. Or you see the next day when the Twitter, film guys are showing the clips, Luke's open. Or sometimes he would be open and then Jaden would overthrow him. Or, there was, I think it was the Eagles game. It was one game where, he was open a few times, or there was just a few times where Jaden threw to him, and each time it just didn't work out. Whether it was Luke not making the play, or it was, Jaden overthrowing him or throwing an interception, it just did not work out. Let me see. It might have been this Philly game right here. Not completely sure there, but I think it was this game. And it just didn't really work out for Jaden and Luke. So I'm hoping their chemistry, gets better. And, my talk in the middle there, in terms of, how good friends are, that doesn't matter. But I was just, thinking about their chemistry and how I thought it was going to be insane chemistry based off of, they would be coming into the facility every single day together and getting there super early. And it just wasn't the same chemistry I thought it was going to be when the season actually started. So we'll see what it is this year. We'll see. It's not on Jaden at this point, because Jaden, has proven himself. Luke's got to start making plays and start earning PT and earning reps. And, if he does, then we'll see how good their chemistry is. Luke's a good blocker, which is good. But, again, if you want to be a big-time player in this league, you're going to have to do more than just blocking. And he's going to have to, make some big plays. He's going to have to make some big plays, and we'll see if he does. I don't have super high expectations for him. I think for me, a successful season for Luke McCaffrey would be, you can't, if he had 700, 800, 900 yards, that's obviously a successful season. That's outstanding. I just think that's unrealistic for a guy that had 168 yards. Maybe it'll happen, but I would say a successful season is hovering around that 400-yard mark and like 2 or 3 touchdowns. I think that would be a really good step in year 2. And then maybe in year 3, you're like, all right, maybe Debo's gone, or maybe he's still there. Maybe Noah Brown's gone. You have a little bit more of an opportunity for Luke McCaffrey to get some reps, and you're like, all right, maybe year 3 we can expect 700, 750 yards. So with Luke, this is a perfect receiver to have. Like him and Jalen Lane are perfect receivers to have in the receiver room, because you want these guys that have the chance to be good receivers that are on rookie deals. These are young guys. You know what Terry McLaurin is. You know at least somewhat what Debo is, and Noah Brown, you know what he is, but you want to have some guys that can be on this team 6, 7 years from now. 6, 7. Can be here for the next 5 to 8 years. And Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane, they have that chance because they are young. They're still on their rookie contracts. So not expecting both of those guys to hit. If both of them do hit, that's great. If one of them hit, though, I think that's great. You drafted them, in the third, late third, early fourth, or mid fourth, respectfully. So, it's just you're not expecting them to, be absolute studs, but there's always a chance. Receivers, all the best receivers aren't necessarily first-round picks. There's good receivers that are drafted on day 2 and day 3, and both of these guys were drafted on day 2 and day 3. And I just like how the receiver room is constructed right now. You always want to have, the vets, but also have some guys that have some potential, similar to the Bucks, right? They have Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, but then they also drafted Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, who, obviously more talented than these two guys, but still, you get my point. But that is it for today's video. Just wanted to talk about Luke McCaffrey. We'll talk about some other second-year players too. Want to talk about Jordan McGee, maybe Ben Sinnott. Mike Sanders, still don't need to talk about him. We know he's a stud. He's got to chill with some of the TikToks, but if you know, you know. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed, and peace.